Side by side, Elliott gets forced into the wall. What a move by Reddick, diving back down to the bottom lane. The Daytona 500 was meant to be a celebration of speed and legacy. Instead, it unraveled into chaos, controversy, and a storm that NASCAR may not be fully prepared to handle. When the smoke finally cleared at Daytona, it wasn't only battered race cars sitting on the front stretch, it was shaken trust, it was strained patience, and it was drivers who had finally reached their breaking point. Tyler Reddick crossed the finish line first, yet even he held back from celebrating. "I didn't know if I had actually won the race or not," Reddick admitted. "At that moment, I knew I crossed the start-finish line first, but I didn't know whether the yellow light had come on before I reached the line and if Chase Elliott had been ahead of me. I didn't know any of those details. Yeah, everybody wrecked, but still, I didn't want to get ahead of myself. I didn't want to believe I'd won and then be told seconds later that I hadn't. That would have been crushing, especially after finishing second last year. I was just trying to stay composed until I was certain." Think about that for a second. The biggest victory of his career, the Daytona 500, and he couldn't even crack a smile because nothing about the ending felt secure. And maybe that uncertainty is exactly the issue. This race meant everything to Reddick. Growing up in California, he never missed it. "I watched a ton of NASCAR races when I was young, but I never missed the Daytona 500, he said. "As a kid growing up in California, I'd sit with my family every Sunday and watch this race. I dreamed about one day simply having the chance to compete in it." He recalled the first time he tested an ARCA car at Daytona. "I remember going out there in an ARCA test session and thinking, this is unbelievably fast, and it feels surreal," Reddick explained. "I had watched so many races here as a kid, and now I was finally on the track myself. I'd always imagined driving off turn 4 through the tri-oval and seeing the grandstands. He never expected it would end like this. I never would have imagined it would lead to me standing here talking about winning the Daytona 500, he said. But when the final lap arrived, it wasn't smooth. It wasn't storybook. It was absolute chaos. Carson Hocevar led when the white flag waved. Moments later, he was spun into the wall. No caution flag. Chase Elliott surged to the front. Then he was collected in a wreck. Riley Herbst attempted a block. Brad Keselowski had a massive run. And then, impact. Cars collided across the finish line. Joey Logano slid across the stripe backwards. Stenhouse scraped along the wall. Keselowski limped home in fifth with heavy front-end damage. And Reddick slipped through the smoke. "It's disappointing," Elliott said afterward. "I don't know what to tell you. We were leading the Daytona 500 off turn 4 heading to the checkered flag and didn't win. So you tell me." That isn't just frustration speaking. That's disbelief. Elliott even conceded, "Maybe I should have just turned left the first time." Keselowski, however, was far more direct. "The 35 just wrecked me out of nowhere for no reason," Keselowski said. "That was one of the dumbest moves I've ever seen. He had zero chance of blocking my run. I had a huge run built up. I don't know if I could have gotten to Reddick or Stenhouse, but I would have liked to find out, because I was coming fast and the 35 just wiped us out and himself. Pretty stupid. A one-lane block might make some sense. But to throw a block from the very bottom all the way to the top and take yourself and everyone else out is just stupid. Very, very stupid." Those aren't mild remarks. That's a driver convinced something fundamental is wrong. And it wasn't only about that final block. Throughout the race, drivers weren't truly racing flat out. They were conserving fuel, running partial throttle, locked in tight. Packs where passing was nearly impossible unless someone made a mistake. The next-gen car has made superspeedway competition so evenly matched and so tight that track position no longer comes from daring moves. It comes from pit strategy. Save more fuel, pit fewer times, gain spots that way. That's not the image fans have when they picture Daytona. Even race-winning team owner Denny Hamlin acknowledged it. "There's a solution, but we're going to have to raise the speeds significantly," Hamlin said. "You've got to make handling matter again. That will spread the field out. It'll make it resemble racing from earlier eras, but as long as their insurance company signs off on it, you're going to have to make these cars faster because right now we're so planted on the racetrack that we can just run in these extremely tight packs." He also mentioned a potential idea: bring the Clash back to Daytona next season and let drivers experiment. "One idea we discussed recently is coming back here next year for the Clash and letting some of us design a package where you won't see any fuel saving," he explained. "You'd just see drivers hanging on for dear life. That might be the only real fix." Later, he simplified it even further. "Take away spoiler and slow us down in the corners," Hamlin said. "More lift. We need more lifting. More lifting means more risk. More risk creates separation. At the moment, the cars are stuck to the surface. Drivers aren't lifting off the throttle. They're locked together in massive packs, waiting for everything to erupt on the final lap. And erupt it did. Herbst defended his move. We were spread out wide down the backstretch, and I chose to go with Reddick, Herbst said. I pushed him, he made the move on Elliott to go side by side, and honestly, I don't know exactly what happened after that. But Keselowski knows what he believes happened, and so do many drivers walking out of the infield care center. When the sport's biggest race ends with half the top 5 wrecking across the finish line, when competitors openly label moves as very, very stupid, and when the winner isn't even sure he's won, that's more than Daytona chaos. That's a warning sign, and it could just be the start. This goes beyond one block, one crash, or one heated comment. It isn't only about Riley Herbst moving high, Brad Keselowski getting spun, or Chase Elliott watching victory slip away. It's about a system drivers are now questioning publicly. For most of the race, they weren't racing flat out. They were calculating fuel windows, monitoring gauges, lifting through corners, and riding in tight formations because the car doesn't allow much else. The next-gen platform has made everyone nearly identical at superspeedways. Equal horsepower, equal drag, equal top speed. When everyone is equal, passing becomes nearly impossible. And when passing is impossible, drivers wait. They wait for pit cycles. They wait for chaos. That's not the feeling the Daytona 500 once had. Hamlin didn't avoid that truth. He embraced it. There's a solution, but speeds have to go up significantly, he repeated. Handling needs to matter again. That spreads the field. That makes it resemble racing from the past. But as long as insurance approves it, you've got to make the cars faster because we're too planted right now and can just run in these tight packs. Planted,